Hi students, welcome to Vijayata IAS Academy Current Affairs class. In today's newspaper, there is an item related to Russia and Ukraine. Here it is saying Putin, Macron agree to work for ceasefire in East Ukraine. Ukraine issue is going on for some time. Now this news is saying that Mr. Putin and Mr. Macron said they would work intensely to allow the trilateral contact group Ukraine, Russia and the OSCE. So in our prelims perspective, we have to see such kind of organizations. What is OSCE and when it was created and what is the role of OSCE? To meet, to get all interested parties to commit to a ceasefire at the contact line where government troops and pro-Russian separatists are facing each other. So diplomacy is on in solving the Russia and Ukraine issue. The need to favor a diplomatic solution to the crisis and do everything to achieve one. So here entire world was afraid whether there is going to be war or not. Now on one hand troop movement is going on the other hand diplomacy channels are also open to solve this particular issue. Here while reading this news you will come across one particular term, that is OSCE. So here what is OSCE? Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. So this is the full form of OSCE and it is intergovernmental organization. The organization was created during Cold War time. During Cold War also there was intense hostility between two hostile camps. One hand Western European countries led by USA and Eastern Bloc led by USSR, that is Communist Bloc. So there was intense hostility between capitalist bloc and communist bloc. This is immediately after Second World War, Cold War started. However, after 2 decades of Cold War, there were some kind of arrangements or diplomatic efforts to reduce the hostilities between two blocs. So one such effort was Helsinki Accords. Those accords took place in 1970s. So in those accords, this OSCE was created, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. The main objective was to protect the human rights or to work for improving the basic human rights, to limit the arms control, to improve the freedom of the press, so that people get the right information and people get the rights in their particular states. So this organization was created to ensure smooth functioning in the relationship between Western Bloc and Eastern Bloc. So here this organization is also involved now to smoothen the relationship between Ukraine and Russia. So here let us see in this context what exactly Russia wants in this particular adventure. Here you can see the map. This is Ukraine. Now there is troop movement in all the sides of in the border areas of Ukraine. Now it is like entire Ukraine region in the eastern part of Ukraine, southern and eastern part of Ukraine was encircled by Russian troops. Now Western European countries, now Ukraine is afraid of invasion of its territory. So Russia is saying there is no intention of invading Ukraine. It is only part of military exercise. However, the real nature we have to see. There are some concerns for Russia and what exactly Russia needs. If we know, then we can get an idea about what is this issue is all about. So here the present news is it is amassing military and equipment on the border areas. Massive military buildup is taking place in these particular areas. Brinkmanship on Ukraine border is going on, threatening to destabilize Europe. So this act may threaten to destabilize entire Europe. One of the biggest security crises since Cold War. Cold War ended in 1991 with the disintegration of USSR. And with that many Eastern Bloc of, here if you see, here many countries, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, these were part of USSR once. Later they became independent countries and USSR, the legacy of USSR taken by Russia. So since that time, there was no such big security crisis like it is going on today. It is like encircling entire Ukraine. Now in this context, what exactly Mr. Putin or Russia wants? Here we should trace to the issue of NATO. Here NATO was created. During Cold War, NATO was created to contain communist forces. Now communism, communist bloc, Cold War ended in 1991. Now after 1991, before 1991, NATO was in the western part of Europe. After 1991, NATO started expanding its bases in eastern part of the Europe as well. Now Russia is saying it is a threat to Russian sovereignty. It is an existential threat to Russia. Already in 2004, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, these three also joined. That means now NATO forces are on the border of Russia. Now Ukraine, in 2008, there was a statement from NATO side said that Ukraine, now NATO membership is open for Ukraine as well. Now Russia took offense based after this particular statement, because there is a special relationship between Ukraine and Russia. So this is where all it started. So here members of NATO expanded continuously after 1991. Russian neighbors Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, they became members. NATO soldiers also alert now. Now Ukraine not a member. So here if you see, Ukraine cornerstone for Russia. In 1991 became independent. NATO pushed eastward. 2004 they became members. In 2008 NATO declared its intentions to offer membership to Ukraine. So this is where all problems started. Now Russia felt offended. Now it is feeling that it is an existential threat to Russia. So Russia says Ukraine is a part of Russia culturally, linguistically and politically. Now if Ukraine becomes part of NATO membership, that means it is almost, the NATO forces are almost inside Russia. So Mr. Putin also said Russian and Ukraine as one people. So they will never allow NATO forces inside Ukraine. In 2014, Euromaidan movement also took place. Here there was split in the Ukraine society that some people, they wanted more integration with the western part of Europe, that is European Union and NATO, and one part of Ukraine, they wanted more close ties with Russia. So the entire society of Ukraine also divided on this line. This is the triggering point and it is creating civil war situation in Ukraine. So here in 2014, what happened? The existing government, initially it said that it wanted to have close relationship European Union. Later that decision was backtracked. So when the government of 2014 backtracked from making any agreement with the European Union, people protested against that particular move and that became Euromaidan movement. So in 2014 Crimea was also annexed by Russia during this particular time period. So here the existing political opinion is also split in Ukraine political spectrum. So one section wants more close relations with the European Union, that is western part of Europe. One political opinion is have close friendly relations with Russia. So in that confusion in 2014, Crimea was also annexed by Russia. Here this is the Crimean part. It gives more strategic basis for Russia because it is in Black Sea. Now it can reach to Western Europe also, in West Asia also, and in different directions it gives closer access to Russia. Now surrounded by all the forces, Russian forces, Ukraine is now threatened. Now Western European countries and Russia diplomatic channels are on. Russia always say Ukraine should not be part of NATO membership. So that is the main purpose of Russia or main demand of Russia. So now it is saying, now this news is about to have diplomatic peaceful solution for this crisis. So this is about this news. Thank you.